Death Spiral, the only anime podcast that's hosted by two goddamn cute as a button hosts, anime cutie hosts.
Yeah, I really appreciate that you're finally acknowledging that I am, in fact, extremely cute.
We're extremely cute little cute guys.
You know, we're just like
two little
cute guys.
cuties.
Yeah.
Doing cutie stuff on our cutie anime podcast. Everybody knows anime is about being cute. They have a whole word for it. Do you know what the word is, Nate?
Is it moe?
You got it.
Or is it kawaii? Kawaii.
No, I think moe is the correct term. I believe kawaii is something that people also say. I have no idea. I don't speak the language.
And you never will.
And I never will. But they do bandy about this term moe a lot. I've been hearing it more and more over the last 50, 60 years.
So actually, I want to ask you real quick. Do you remember the first time you heard that term brought up in relation to anime discussion?
Moe?
Yeah.
It was so long ago, and I didn't really understand it because at the time, what I understand now as moe, I kind of described growing up as chibi.
Which is, I think...
super deformed.
Yeah, which I think is maybe... I mean, it's definitely a different thing. I don't think I ever had that conceptualization of what moe is. But I remember being very confused for a long time on what exactly, like, it is, you know?
Yeah.
Because moe is, to my current modern day scientifically backed understanding of the term, it's just kind of like the quality of being appealing in some way. Like, that's the broadest definition that I can apply to it, because it's not specifically like being like cutesy appealing. So that is a lot of it, but like that's what kawaii is, right? Kawaii is like cutesy cute.
I don't know that word. I'll have to check your word for it. But I will say, I was obviously, I mean, the chibi thing, I was confusing a specific aesthetic style with the kind of more broad moe movement.
Yes.
Which became clearer as I delved deeper into the horrors of anime, manga, and visual novels.
Big mistake doing that, by the way.
Yes. Now, I do want to read something to you, because this is something interesting.
Okay. All right.
Another thing to read.
He's always doing this. He's always reading stuff. I
will talk about it in a little bit, but I read and reread a couple of Nihei Tsutomu's works because I want to be Nihei Tsutomu complete. So I read all of Knights of Sidonia, then I went back and I read all of Blame again, and then I read Apisims, and it's very interesting seeing the way that these works all kind of smoosh together. He reuses a lot of interesting concepts in a way that you could interpret as a continuum. You know, something like Biomega, right? Being the end of Earth and the beginning of the superstructure leading into like the Blame and Blame prequel, becoming the exploration of what happened with the biostructure. Then you have something like Abara, which was like sitting right in the middle. And then it leads into Knights of Sidonia, where Earth has been abandoned for space colonies, right? And then Knights of Sidonia, after encountering placenta aliens, we lead into Apisims, which is again about an Earth, not even an Earth, a planet that exists at the end of a biomegastructure like life cycle where humans and placenta like coexist in a weird way. And of course, then you have Tower Dungeon, which does not connect to any of this at all, except for this.
That's just like a fun little like side adventure, you know? He was having fun with that one.
It is a fun little side adventure. And what he was also having a fun little side adventure with is Blame Gakuen and so on, or Blame Academy and so on, which is a collection of shorts, which range from like interesting side stories for Blame and then sort of like parodic inversions of Blame, specifically the Academy part.
I'm finding that really hard to conceptualize, knowing what I do know about Nihei Tsutomu and his work. The idea of him having levity or humor in his stuff is foreign to me. Maybe I haven't read. I'm not a completist. I'm not a Nihei Tsutomu completist, unlike you.
What? You haven't read his issue of Wolverine?
I've seen the art. I've not read the issue of Wolverine. It is cool.
Fool.
It is a pretty cool picture.
It is cool.
I do like his Wolverine design.
Yeah. And Wolverine gets sent to a future where it is like a post-bio megastructure, and he has to deal with like the remnants of civilization being taken out by pseudo placenta monsters. So, really, really bringing it all together, I have to say.
Yeah.
But I think he's absolutely maybe top 5. It's hard to say. Top 5 maybe of mangaka. And the ranking, we got to do the ranking at some point because it's really tough for me to nail it down. But I love Nihei Tsutomu, and he does have a great sense of humor. Blame is pretty grim for the most part. Not a lot of humor there, but I think it's interesting to see these short stories where he experiments a little bit with it, playing with what is essentially, in a way, mocking what is the rise of this particular form, the moe. And at the end of Blame Gakuen and so on, there is a brief essay, a very brief essay. And I just want to read this because I think it's really interesting, and it touches at the core of something that we found very annoying a lot of the time. And I think this brings a little clarity. It definitely is something I found very interesting.
Okay.
Essay begin. The late 20th century was overflowing with postmodern nihilism, leading to a miraculous storm of dystopian fiction. Blame, right? Technology, the symbol of bright progress since the late 19th century, made a turnabout into a weapon that threatened human society in countless stories throughout Japan after the oil shocks of the 1970s. Even the capitalist superpower of America was darkened by the gray future of technology run amok.
That doesn't sound familiar.
The anti-futurist view is exemplified by the sudden appearance of the American movie Blade Runner and the concurrent trend of cyberpunk sci-fi, as well as the twin pillars of post-war Japanese manga and anime, Akira and Neon Genesis Evangelion. The conclusion to the grand narrative in real life came with the fall of the Berlin Wall and the Soviet Union, but in the world of creative fiction, this phenomenon evolved rapidly throughout the 80s and 90s. The grand narrative of the latter 20th century was belief that capitalism and technology would lead humanity to a happy future. But the sci-fi fiction produced after Blade Runner was the negative of this belief, its anti-technological imprint, and the conclusion of the modern nihilism of capitalist ideology. But when the 21st century came, humanity did not perish. It brought about the rise of the world-centric story, or in other words, a story in which the narrator's own struggle, usually romantic, and that is capitally R romantic, is expanded to have worldwide ramifications, or as I like to call them, the 3-meter radius stories, after the personal distance that supposedly fosters romance. If the philosophy of these stories was summed up in one statement, it would be, I don't need an Evangelion. I don't care about humanity. I just want to hit it off with chicks. These world-centric stories still retain the trappings of sci-fi elements and literary cynicism as an excuse, but eventually those external impurities were eliminated, leaving only the purified, blind hope of moe and the idolization of the character. In the cycle of the production and consumption of stories, this movement was akin to the author, editor, and reader each simultaneously abandoning their self-awareness at once. It was the arrival of the moe boom. And this avalanche phenomenon, many of the great dystopian artists of the 80s and 90s began to attempt their own moe works in the early 21st century, an act of mass suicide that would make lemmings proud. Hideyuki Furuhashi, a hard SF light novelist who plumbed the depths of dystopian literature since his debut, Black Rod, and did much for the rise of the Dengeki Bunko publishing line, unveiled the heartwarming family comedy The Tatsumori's Dinner Table in 2000. It was a questionable attempt at moe, given that the main heroine was made of metal and galactic warfare promptly erupted. But Furuhashi continued to experiment with moe alongside his darker work until in 2006 he published Ultra Sister Wars Sismageddon, which was essentially if all 108 stars of destiny from the Suikoden epic were depicted as little sisters. Even a Monkey Can Draw manga duo of Kentaro Takekuma and Koji Aihara attempted to trace the rise of the moe art style and analyze the boom in the 21st century in their inimitable style. Eventually, Kentaro Takekuma, a living legend of the dystopian style if ever there was one, attempted Even a Monkey 2.0, a Haruhi Suzumiya-styled moe character project, which backfired spectacularly. I can also vividly recall the SF great Yasutaka Tsutsui carelessly attempting a light novel in the magazine Faust with illustrations from Haruhi Noisy Ito. Ever since SF Magazine did a feature on world-centric stories, the literary world and its long downturn were put on a collision course with moe. Even Koku Bungaku, the most hardline of literary magazines, put together a moe special issue. All of which is to say that the extraordinary moe boom is something like a Japanese self-defense mechanism in response to the nihilism of the unknown 21st century, following the loss of the great narrative. Therefore, all the markets for our storytelling must be painted over in the colors of moe, for we have lost all of the stories we are meant to tell. Well, now that I've written a bunch of stuffy postmodern nonsense that amounts to analysis and has nothing to do with the creation of Blame Academy, I'll consider my work here done. If any problem with this exists, it surely lies in the poor judgment of editor E. Ue, whose only mission is to continue demanding poor Tsutomu Nihei to take Sibo's clothes off and draw Sibo's nipples again. Afterknown is primarily known for the feel-good vibes of Oh My Goddess, but as a response to the greatness of Belle Dandy, the rest of the magazine has turned into a dystopian fortress, a veritable Kowloon walled city of mourning. As a matter of fact, I would love to see an anthology of all the Afternoon manga done in a moe style, not just Blame. I want to read Moe Loveyan, where Loveyan has eyeballs that take up half her face, and an idealized Kazufusa drawn like the protagonist of an Arrow game, flirting it up in a school setting. How about a Crawfish student president, where all the teen girls form a harem, clamoring for Crawfish's attention? Given that the author is a fan of the Key game developer, it's easy to envision a Blade of the Immortal Academy. And I'd love to see Mozuza-san go even further down the road of moe cliché, voiced by Rie Kugimiya. Personally, I find Mysterious Girlfriend X to be the greatest moe manga there is, so just picture Mikoto in our imaginary moe Afternoon special issue wearing cat ears and cat tail, enormous eyes welling with tears as she battles a mystery UFO with her scissors, proclaiming, "They're not panties, so I'm not ashamed." But of course, the centerpiece of my magazine will be, yes, Satoshi Karasuya-tan really is moe. Postscript. Boom and bust cycles tend to last 10 years. Perhaps when the dystopian morning story comes back into vogue, the Blame series will make its triumphant return.
Okay, I take it back.
This was published in 2004.
2004?
Yes.
Okay, I take it back. He's very funny. He's a very funny guy.
So I think what is interesting in particular is the boom of moe is about abandoning a self-awareness in science fiction and fantasy, right?
Mm-hmm.
That moe is the blind hope and idolization of the character over the world. It's a cynicism that uses the trappings of science fiction and fantasy to explore a purified romantic worldview. And specifically, that this is a reaction to the world not ending during Y2K, right? That the deflationary move of Y2K after a mounting technological paranoia leading to nothing considering an apocalypse, a technological apocalypse, led directly to this idea of this like nihilism, this cynicism. The abandoning of things like Akira and Neon Genesis Evangelion, which I find are two things that are really interesting to evoke here as the precursors of nihilism, right? Because we also see, very specifically after this point, using Evangelion here is very interesting because what happened after Evangelion?
Well,
The end of Evangelion.
Yes,
which is an exceptionally nihilistic work, but also the moeification of Evangelion.
well, that's what I was about to say. That was the one that stuck out to me because we've talked about this particular thing so much in relation to Evangelion before. And in the broader sense, this idea of can you criticize the thing while doing the thing? The answer is always no, in my opinion.
I would say it depends.
I don't know, maybe, but
My opinion
Evangelion
is
is kind of the
depends.
poster child for this problem, and Tsutomu recognizes it, even back in 2004, that it was supposed to be a commentary on this exact phenomena of abandoning losing the plot in pursuit of the idolification of the characters, right? Because Anno, I think, recognized it as well. That's why End of Evangelion is so nihilistic, is because he tried to make a statement and people just said, give us more Rei, give us more Asuka, more skin tight suits. That's what we want. Tsutomu is just recognizing the extrapolation of that attitude into the future, right? Like that's what this is.
I think it's fun to put Akira and Evangelion in conversation because Akira, the main character of Akira is Akira, right? It's very funny about the manga and the anime because we're dealing with Kaneda and Tetsuo the whole time.
Right.
These are clearly, and Kaneda is our perspective character, and he is how we view the world in Akira. But he is a character who does not explore himself very much, and Tetsuo does not explore himself very much either. Besides a resentment of the world, whereas Kaneda kind of he's at worst oblivious, at best not particularly interested in the world.
Yeah, no, I would say that Kaneda in Akira is ambivalent and at best towards the world he inhabits.
Is ambivalent.
He inhabits.
Yes.
Yes,
his
absolutely. Motivation is trying to save his friend, someone he has a personal connection to. But the overall of everything, he likes being a motorcycle goon. He's in his zone when he's beating people up with a lead pipe. He likes that.
Yeah, I mean it's a common character trope of the 80s where it's a character who is living in a fallen world, and not only is there no entry point into society, but he does not see any reason to engage in society at large because alienation has rendered him almost dead, and his entire life at the point of the movie is bent towards feeling alive again. And that's why he does drugs, that's why he kills people, that's why he rides his bike, right? That's why he goes around
that's why he's a cool guy.
Yeah, trying to fuck on something. That's his entire fucking life. And it's not until Tetsuo actually becomes in mortal danger that there is something he actually cares about. But overall, it's the attempt of humanity to birth a new god, which is really the attempt of humanity to artificially create meaning in the world, right? Mm-hmm. And that goes very wrong because, as flawed people, as flawed species, our creation of a god will be a flawed god, and that's why it needs to be destroyed.
Yes.
And everything of that, all of that, is not an idealization of a character, of a romanticization of a character. It's the cold, steely-eyed portrayal of a world. And Evangelion is a turning point in that way because it is very much also about a world wherein a character is totally disconnected from society and feels at best an ambivalence to participation in that society. The alienation runs so deep. Shinji kind of feels dead. He feels dead all the time. It is not until somebody else, some external force, drags him back into life, and he finds that putting his life in danger reaffirms his existence in the world, that he is allowed to participate in some form of society, but not in a way that
you're making it sound more positive for his character than that actually is, because his motivation for getting in the robot, colloquially speaking, is not because he sees the greater good in protecting humanity, which is like something that he grapples with up until the end of the series. He is seeking parental approval, and he's seeking, to impress the girl/girls that he like kind of has a crush on. And those are explicitly stated as being like not good reasons to get in the death machine.
Yeah. And Kaneda does not save/destroy Tetsuo because he wants to stop the birth of a flawed god, right? He does it because it's basically just like a gut feeling he has that he wants to like help his friend. He has no interest in society, again, of the crumbling society around him. He has no intention of saving the world. He could not give less of a shit. And neither does Shinji. He does not care. It is the base desire, the absolute basest of desires that drives him into a position where he can, again, finally engage in a larger society. Mm-hmm. But Anno does this weird thing where after establishing all of that, after establishing Shinji's re-entry point into a world where he can relate to other people and he has something to do and he no longer feels dead all the time, just when, things aren't going his way or he's alone or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Or he feels like he's failed. Anno then converts all of that back into the singular identity. All of the world is then reintegrated into one person. Like, society is folded. Literally, in Evangelion, all of society is folded back into a single person's experience.
Yeah, they just melt it all back down into one thing.
Yeah, into a big slag heap of reality, meaning that, like, Shinji has not reintegrated into society in like a classic way, nor has he escaped it. Shinji now has become all of it. He has incorporated all of it into a single individual. He's individualized the entire fucking world. And like going back to that essay, the idea of cynically destroying a world-centric sci-fi fantasy attempt and turning it into the romanticization of the character piece. Evangelion is like the fucking prism.
Yes.
It's like the goddamn Pink Floyd album, except in reverse, right? Everything passes back through Evangelion into the Moe. And End of Eva is Anno's mourning of his mistake.
It's his rejection of that, not interpretation, but of that consumption of his art in that way. It's a very negative film. End of Evangelion.
I mean, we've talked about this, maybe not so much on the show, a little bit on the show, but I've always interpreted that Anno not misunderstood or created an accidental ending with the ending of the show. I think he arrived at the end of the show organically, but not in a way that was thoughtful. I've always thought of that as him reaching the end of the show, needing to put an ending in it, and then reaching inside of him and into his own subconscious and just kind of deciding. And that's why I think the ending of the show is so personal to him, and why it kind of devolves into this exploration of the id, this almost like subconscious exploration of the id. And that's also why it devolves into such a singular identity of an individual. And then End of Evangelion is like looking back at that and finding it uncomfortable that he expressed himself in that way, and that is not how he meant to portray himself. And he feels like he needs to overcorrect, right? And to punish his audience. I certainly think that's a big part of it.
I think that is probably a bigger part of it, at least in my interpretation, because you cannot get more explicit in imagery of how you think what you think of your audience, than the beginning of End of Eva, where you have Shinji masturbating over the comatose body of his teenage friend.
Yes, you have long since been in the position that this is an indictment of the Evangelion fandom.
Yes,
and I don't necessarily disagree with it.
I think that is first and foremost in the dialogue of this movie. And yes, there is some self reflection from Anno on his handling and writing of the original series in there, for sure, definitely. But at least for me, you cannot get over, you cannot analyze the film in any deep capacity without recognizing that it does hate Eva fans, for good reason, mind you. I agree with everything that film says. And if you needed to put like a dot on the I, like the big psychedelic scene at the end just straight up shows like picture scans of hate mail and death threats Gainax got because they didn't have enough waifu material at the end of the series. And they have shots, like live camera shots of audiences that went to see the like special premiere showing of End of Eva. And it's like, a theater full of people holding Rei and Asuka dolls. Like homemade ones, it looks like in some of them. And it's like, how can you be Anno, see that stuff, get those hateful letters to not just you, to like threatening your staff, and come out and be like, you know what? I think that my audience just isn't, like, I'm not communicating with them clearly enough. No, he made a little, like, the movie is spiteful, and I'm here for it, but that movie is spiteful.
I do think it's spiteful in a lot of ways. I also think that spite is part of why he made the remake movies.
Yeah, and I think the remake movies are him doing a double back on his attitudes in the End of Eva, where it's 20 years later. He's softened, he's grown as a director, as a writer. He's older now, he has a family, he has a wife. And he's like, well, maybe I was a little hard on the characters in that one. Yeah. So he went back and he tried to rectify things. He tried to explain himself a little more clearly, update his, kind of philosophy that he was putting forward, where the End of Eva is an incredibly nihilistic ending. He didn't feel right leaving it at that. And so he's like, no, this is not the end for these characters. I have to show that at the very least, the possibility of growth and resolution is possible for people, which is a very old man director kind of attitude to take.
Yeah, I'm not sure he even believes it too. I mean, that's kind of the problem.
Yeah,
I think the rebuild movies are a reaction to both the ending of the TV show and End of Eva, because, like I said, I think when he got to the end of the TV show, he kind of just was like, I don't know, I don't fucking know. I'm going to try to write like one of those like love letters to yourself where you like try to affirm yourself.
Yeah.
But you don't really know what the fuck you're talking about, and you don't even necessarily 100% believe it.
I think.
And then in End of Eva, he says, well, fuck all of you. He externalizes Eva.
Yeah.
And then with the rebuild movies, he wants to go back and he says, I misrepresented what I believe about the show and what I believe about the world. Let me take another swing at it, and let me see if I can like clarify what I actually think. And what I think is that maybe like if there's a way, there is a world, there is a path, there is a narrative where like Shinji, who is me, who is you, could find something approaching like, I don't know, a decent life. Maybe. I think so. If you meet the right girl and fall in love,
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing saves your life a bunch of times.
To bring up, because we started this whole conversation talking about, Ava's effect on the moeification of anime, right? And then now we're at the Ava rebuild movies, and like, he wanted to do kind of a more compassionate, sympathetic take on the ending for these characters, but also all of that moe evolution had been impacted in anime and like festered for 20 years. And so not only now when we get the Eva rebuild movies, now they lean so much harder into like the weird sexualization shots of the female characters. It's way worse in those movies than it was in the original series.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the introduction of Asuka being like literally just looking up her skirt is not great.
Well, okay. Not just that.
That's the first thing
That's
we see
the
of
first
her.
thing. But the one that really killed it for me in those movies was the decision that, oh yeah, and I'm sure that there is a read into this that probably makes sense, but like my initial reaction to the fact that the Ava pilots are suddenly revealed to not age past their teens, despite there being like a decade-long time skip between the first and second movie.
The curse of Ava.
Yeah, the curse of the Ava pilot.
The curse.
It's like, okay, I maybe get what you're saying, but also what you're saying is that now Asuka can just be a 15-year-old forever, and we can say she's an adult.
Yeah.
Like, creepy, right? It's not great.
It's not great.
It's not great.
It's not great.
So
it is,
I have complicated feelings
great.
about those movies. I like the overall tone that they try and take, for the finale, and the final fight scene between Shinji and his dad through the different realities of the show, of the medium, to the point where they just straight up they knock down the set walls and are fighting in a studio space. I really liked that. I thought that was all really cool. It just, it falls kind of flat when the final answer to Shinji's depression is, but what if you got a cute wife? What if then?
Yeah, and I also think it's difficult to take Ano seriously in a lot of ways because his I had a lot of emotional problems that I didn't know how to work through during the making of Neon Genesis Evangelion were resolved when I became a rich and famous director.
Yes.
It's just hard. I have said many times, I did not like a single second of those movies until the last 10 minutes. And then I was like, yeah, I like this. I will say, I have to admit that when I got to the final point and I was able to contextualize everything that I saw in the movies, if I allowed myself to feel what the movie wanted me to feel, I was satisfied.
Yeah.
But the idea that Evangelion is a transference point, is a pivot point, and then we enter the era, the Moe era, right? With I guess leading the charge is a lot of visual novels, or some people talk about Kimagure, Orange Road, right?
Mm-hmm.
As sort of one of the precursors, because there's some characters in there that kind of end up being the visual touchstone. And so I would say something like Clanad, right?
Sure.
Definitely.
Well, I mean, I think if we want to go...
establishes this.
I mean, we can go so far back if we're just picking and choosing what qualities we think make up Moe, because Moe, in my opinion, evolves directly from the success of the magical girl genre, and then the aesthetic design signifiers of that bleeding into the, anime overall. I think that's where I would say that Moe starts, conceptually. And then we get, Cardcaptor Sakura. And then after a certain point, post-Ava, they realize that they can just kind of abandon the fantasy sci-fi aspects of that and just go straight to the idolification of the characters.
Yes. And I think that is the point of this essay, right? Is that there is a cynicism about abandoning self-awareness and abandoning world-centric storytelling, right?
Yeah.
And focusing entirely on the romantic individual as the subject and the point of these kinds of things. And moe becoming not just an aesthetic of anime, but stuff like gothic Lolita, right, which becomes like not just subculture, but like an entire lifestyle for some people. Like Gyaru is, right? Like you could be a Gyaru, you could be like a goth Lolita.
Yeah.
And people making stuff like K-On! Or Lucky Star, right? As like, that is not just an anime, that is like a subculture. Leading, and stuff like K-On! And Lucky Star, right, too, like leading directly into a waifu culture, right?
Right.
And I think the connection that I'm thinking of a lot because of the waifu stuff is the idea of the waifu culture being an extension of the moe culture, growing like, I'm really trying not to use the word cancer, but proliferating
Growing
across,
like some kind of out of control disease in your body.
yeah. Not only, I mean, growing aesthetically and narratively and various ways. Economically is the big one. Growing into every level of manga and anime storytelling. And specifically gacha games, right? Because that's the waifu ground zero.
Well, I wouldn't say that's the ground zero. I would say that is that's the end result. That is gacha waifu games are late stage capitalism in its rawest form.
Yeah, well, yes. Yeah, it is the zone.
Yeah, yes. Gacha waifu games are the goal that all of this was leading towards from the beginning.
And I think that's why I wanted to read this essay, right? Because I do believe that making the connection between the boom of moe that becomes waifu culture and the abandonment of the sci-fi fantasy philosophy ideology of the 90s and 80s, being that character, like it says in the essay, the world-centric attempt at storytelling, diminishing into a romanticized individual, is ultimately the cynicism that drives waifu culture, and now it becomes the economic engine that drives all of anime. And as more and more people who make anime start raising the alarm about the economics and development of anime, I think it is really important to become aware of why these things happen, and maybe to more seriously explain why we personally object to waifus and moe on a fundamental level as not just like being haters, right? Because I've never wanted to just be a hater of something, unless it's, there are things I do want to be a hater about. And I will always make that clear.
And I do want to be clear, I have no problems. I have no qualms whatsoever about being a hater. But in this specific case, I do have legitimate reasons for hating.
Yeah. I think there's a misunderstanding. It's sort of a short term compared to a long term look at anime and manga right now, where in a short term you would say the moeification and the subsequent turn to waifuification is what is saving manga and anime. It is what's driving the economy of manga and anime. That the things you like can't exist if people aren't spending money on gacha game waifus, or like the show you are watching and enjoy could not exist if they didn't put the panty shots in it, right?
Right.
And I'm not saying that's not true. I think that is true. I think I've read enough of people complaining or simply commenting on the fact that their editors are like, we need more sexiness in your work to sell it, especially with like works that maybe are not popular in a general sense. They're said that, like, to sell this, you're going to need to add panty shots, right? Or just like more big boob anime girls into the mix here, or this isn't going to be marketable. And I think the long-term effect, unfortunately, is, even if that's all true, the long-term effect is that we will return to a space, to a point where anime and manga is again seen as like gauche, crude, which I think we've made so much strides, like the way that Akira, right, and Ghost in the Shell in the golden era broke through those kind of conceptions and became a serious art form. We are now falling backwards into an era where anime and manga are just not going to be serious pieces of work.
I feel like that particular idea of anime and manga not being taken seriously as an art form is kind of a weird one, because obviously in Japan, when anime and manga as an industry first started taking like major strides forward as being an industry, right? In the 60s, 70s, 80s, like it was considered, like animation was not considered like a kid's thing. That's why we got all those like weird, dark cyberpunk OVAs and stuff from the 70s and 80s. Why we got Akira, which is why we got stuff like Tsutomu's
Fantastic
work.
Planning.
Yeah, Fantastic Planet. I think that the idea of it being a childish thing is specifically a Western view that comes from the fact that the first things that were viewed as marketable to a Western audience en masse was children's stuff like Pokemon, Digimon, toy stuff that they could sell merchandise for, right? Before that, it was considered a very niche interest. You had to import all of these VHS tapes in the 80s and 90s if you wanted to watch them, or you had to get bootlegs from a con or like a shop somewhere. You couldn't just go online today to a streaming site and watch everything that you could ever find. And I think that shaped a lot of people's perception of what it is. And I'm not also saying that anime and manga weren't also a, children's toy marketing scheme previously in Japan as well. It was, but it was wider than that. That was just the first stuff that got imported to a mass audience. And I think that, like you said, since the initial interest was generated by Pokemon and stuff in the late 90s, we've taken big strides into a Western audience considering it a much more mature and valid art form, and we're sliding back from that. But I don't think that was ever the mass, like the popular opinion outside of America, or at least like Western specific audience. I think in Eastern Asia and Southeast Asia, it was always kind of seen as just another form of making media. Yeah. The period.
Yeah.
End.
End sentence. I think it's not necessarily I think when I talk about it, I think it goes back to something we talk about a lot about self-infantilization, right?
Yes, and there's so much of it.
There's so much of it, and I think part of it is like this kind of idea that not necessarily that people are going to view cartoons as childish or crude, but that this form of cartoon, which is becoming the dominant form of anime, right, is going to be inherently linked to like infantilization, a regressive form of like self-identification. And to the point where we have people arguing, in specific for Moe, that there is such a thing as anti-Moe discrimination.
Most persecuted group in history.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the term fictosexualism? Have you ever heard that term?
I didn't want to, but I have now. You forced that knowledge on me.
Yeah. There are, there are schools of thought, and you can always find in large enough academic bodies of work, you could always find this kind of stuff. I'm not saying this is like to discredit like academic work on this kind of thing, but there are people who will argue that like being anti-fictosexual, fictosexuality being, the sexual attraction to like, well, non-existent things. I guess is the only way to put it, right? Fictional concepts or characters. They will describe that as like anti-fictosexualism is like being homophobic or transphobic, right? Because like a sexuality that like trying to deny the idea of like a sexuality is the same as like transphobia or whatever.
Okay, well, I want to jump in real quick and just give my opinion on that. It's not. It's not a thing. That's not a thing.
I would when I think about it, I think like it's probably not. Like being attracted to or not attracted to human beings is an inherently different thing from being attracted to or not being attracted to literal concepts. But we are at the point that these are arguments people are examining and making. But there are also other people more maybe in line with me, who believe that like moeism, right, and waifuism is a inherently like conservative reactionary tendency.
I think I agree with that.
Yeah, that there is moe conservatives, and the movement of moe, in the otaku movement. The people who complain about anti-fictosexualism are the same people who complain about anti-otakuism, right?
Oh,
Otaku discrimination. Are people who are crypto chauvinists, right? Like it's clearly like anti-feminist, right? In a lot of cases. Whereas I've always held the belief that like an otaku is not a thing, is not a real thing. In the way that like concepts are real, of course, but the category of human being otaku, I do not believe is real, and you cannot discriminate against an otaku because otaku is not it's not a person. You are not a assigned otaku at birth or whatever.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of like the same argument as like is nerd a category of people?
Yeah,
like
you can't.
Can you be
anti-nerdism?
Yeah, is anti-nerdism a thing? Can you be structurally discriminated against for what franchises you decide to spend your money on? Like, no, you can't.
And I think when we look at like manga and the manga we read, we've got so many characters who are self-described otaku, especially with the fucking whole Chunibyo main character thing, right? And we often see that what people, even in these manga, whether it's intentional or not, what we see is people reacting not to the like, oh, they build like model kits, right? Or they read a lot of comics. They react more to the like death to normies attitude, which is like, the anti-socialism, excuse me, though maybe also anti-socialism. It is the antisocial attitude.
Yeah, no, I'm really into like a radical leftist moe. That's my thing.
Fine. I would love, I'm sure there are people out there who have radical left politics who are also moes. We can have like reactionary furries. We can absolutely have leftist moes.
Yeah.
Everything exists under the heavens. But I think these are tied more to like antisocial behaviors, and like otakuism being unfortunately tied to like antisocial death to normies behaviors is a lot more prevalent than like people making fun of you because you watch anime, especially now, because guess what? Everybody fucking watches anime.
Yeah.
Everybody does it. We all do it.
Anime won. Yeah, anime won the war on drugs. Like,
anime won.
We got to get over that. And yeah, I think that is probably, what am I trying to say? The whole otaku, like death to normies attitude, that's been present in anime as like an archetype for a long time, right? And I feel like looking back, recognizing now that even going so far back as like 90s stuff with I can't remember what it's called, but the proto Love Hina manga that guy did before Love Hina, where it's about a main character who does a weird science and dates his computer girlfriend, basically. And he is also a self-described otaku. And in that one, the concept is that his AI computer girlfriend is based off of all of his like favorite visual novel girls, right?
Yeah.
Like, and he's very much...
Was that AI Love You?
AI Love You. That's what it was called.
That was the one. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
And like, even in that one, going back, recognizing all otaku, like this specific like aspect of otaku culture that you're describing, that's just what modern day incel culture is. It's all the same stuff. It was just a different name back then. And also, I think, I've long held that like social issues present in Japanese media is kind of a precursor for the general world at large, because since the late 70s, the Japanese economy has been kind of like this weird hyper-focused version of the global economy, where you can almost look to see what's going to happen on a large scale based on how well the Japanese business sector is doing. Because all of this like stupid isolation, male loneliness epidemic culture that we're seeing now, that's all just hikikomori stuff from 15 years ago, right?
Sure.
But it's all the same
just
stuff.
Mix in, just add, change the ratio of like nationalism and anti-feminism, right? Chauvinism at large. Just kind of like tweak the ratios, right?
Yeah.
And you end up with this particular flavor.
So it's bleak. It's a bleak landscape, and it has been for a while,
And it's lasted a little bit longer than the essay stated, right? The 10-year cycle of like cultural trends.
Yeah, that's actually probably the scariest part of this whole thing, is that he way underestimated how long this was going to go. By his estimation, we should have been on the bounce back right now. Things should be good.
Well, they have evolved. I would say comparing the current form of this stuff to Clanad or whatever is not just like an aesthetic shift, though that stuff still exists. There is a different version of it. It has shifted. Like the Madoka Magica is kind of, it holds the original moe aesthetic, but now it is obsessed with being subversive, right?
Yeah.
Now the moes kill each other.
Yes.
Or, something like 100 Girlfriends, which we've talked about a few times. Like, is the original moe, but yeah, it's my favorite one. It is the original moe, but it is a horrifying parade of moes. It has to be this weird subversive thing.
Yeah. I was thinking more like, like Rent a Girlfriend is probably more in line with the like modern evolution of the traditional moe. And I was going to say before, we would have no Rent a Girlfriend if not for Evangelion. There's a direct through line between those that I think we just explored in this conversation.
It's weird though, because like it's hard to slot moe into the isekai boom. I think that's the huge changeover, is the isekai boom of like, I want to die.
I think that
this is really the ultimate evolution.
Well, I think that the thing there is that isekai is so nihilistic. I don't think the modern moe aesthetic has caught up to that particular attitude yet. It's so nihilistic and self-serving and self-aggrandizing that, you have to pick. You're either an isekai or you're like a moe harem kind of like romance story. Because when the isekai stuff tends to do the like harem relationship with its main character and the female characters, it can tend to get much darker much quicker with it in concept.
I think that there's the weird moe thing, the like full-blooded moe thing is definitely changing and going away a little bit. So I do think that forecast isn't necessarily wrong, because we don't get a lot of stuff. Like last season we had, like you said, Rent a Girlfriend, which is kind of moe for sure. I don't remember if you do you remember Go For It, Nakamura-kun, right?
Yeah. We didn't talk about that one, but
It's a moe.
That's a moe.
But it's like BL, right?
BL moe can still be moe.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like it has adapted in a little ways. There's the unfortunately there's stuff like the Yoa Sensei, which is the exploration of like moe that is explicitly sexual, like aggressively and explicitly sexual, which I think was more reined in its original incarnation.
I mean, if we want to go with a pure example, I would say something from last season, like You and I Are Polar Opposites is probably like a pretty as close to bog standard moe type anime as we got. And even that one is itself it's a Gyaru comic for the most part, which also, like, how much does like Gyaru romance stuff fall into moe? That's a subcategory, right?
A little bit, but I think of moe more, if we're going off of Lucky Star and K-On!, right? Like last season, the moe would be more like Marika's Love Meter.
Yeah, sure. Okay, sure.
Or Ichijoma, stuff like this. All the magical girl shit.
Yeah.
Now you need lots of young girls who look very young.
Now, what about something like Fragrant Flower, which is like pretty moe, but also very grounded and not exactly like super exaggerated in its characters?
I mean, that's where it gets harder for me, especially a show like that where there's kind of like a smaller cast.
Yeah.
Feels like more of a traditional just romance story. That has less of the moe aesthetic, the huge, massive eyes and very tiny little characters. I think that's actually more of like getting out, exiting moe for that kind of particular story, which is, I think, probably good.
I would say so. I read a fair amount of that manga, and while it does stray into a lot of kind of stereotypical cutesy high school romance writing tropes, I would never say that it is particularly exploitative of the characters themselves, if that makes sense. I would say a big part of moe, the way I'm conceptualizing it in this conversation, is that it carries a certain level of marketing consideration when with the character designs and writing. I believe that this is kind of like that idolification that Tsutomu talked about in his essay. It's in that one, it's the central couple, sure, and they're definitely presented as like being attractive people to each other, but I don't believe the tone of it was never trying to sell the viewer too much on the female characters as a product, as opposed to just characters in the story. Whereas something like K-On! Going farther back, it's like, no, we are creating a cast of cute girl characters specifically for male audience members to form some kind of weird emotional connection to, right?
Yeah.
I like that we're moving away from that, consciously moving away from that attitude in a lot of stuff, or, consciously leaning into it, like 100 Girlfriends, and doing something that's like borderline ridiculous in its concept. I mean, 100 Girlfriends is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous concept.
Yeah, it's a subversion.
Yeah,
but it ripples outward because, like, in a Witch Hat Atelier, right, is like a cast of like a large cast of like cute little girls, so it has like moe DNA in it. But I think if you watch it, it's like it has a sincerity and earnestness and grounded feeling that like makes it more ambiguous.
I think that captures what I was trying to say. Moe in the modern concept of it is like cynical, right? Like it's a cynical thing to try and purposely say like, no, we need to make the characters more Moe. The show isn't Moe enough to sell.
It's not Moe enough.
It's not Moe enough.
Go back to the storyboards. Make this more Moe.
Go back to the drawing board. Whereas like, Witch Hat Atelier and Fragrant Flower, there is a level of sincerity that you can tell was present when writing the story. And I think we're moving away from just, and this isn't just for anime and manga, this is kind of like everything in general. I feel like people the world over are just kind of getting tired of cynicism. Like, right? We're craving sincerity for the most part.
I think that is definitely a trend. We're moving away from this stuff. But I want to say about Witch Hat, I think what is ambiguous about it is going back to the essay, right? Is that Witch Hat is a world-centric fantasy.
Yeah.
Witch Hat has concerns about its world and is trying to explore those concerns. It is not a individualist romance. And I think that's what separates it from something like Rent a Girlfriend. Or what's the one a second prettiest girl.
Oh yeah, yes. I made friends with the second prettiest girl in my class.
Yeah. And that is a dividing line and of science fiction and fantasy for sure. And also these kind of I guess shoujo or slice of life stuff is that particular thing, and the resurgence of like a world-centric storytelling. And I hope that it happens. I hope that's like a real thing.
Yeah, we all hope that that's a real thing.
Oh shit. Okay.
All right, we've been talking about Moe for an hour and 20 minutes. I can't go on like this. We were supposed to talk about the summer lineup for Anime Summer 2026, and then we started talking about Evangelion, and now we're here an hour later. So we ran out of time.
We ran a little far afield. I'm sorry. They kind of ended up in a place I wasn't trying to go to. I did want to talk about All You Need Is Kill, but whatever. Whatever.
Okay, we'll save it for next time. We can talk about All You Need Is Kill. We can talk about Summer Anime 2026 Anime Summer. I need to go watch something that is decidedly not Moe right now to get this taste out of my mouth.
God damn it! I fucking rambled for. I want to talk about this for like 20 minutes, and then we just fucking went off. God damn it!
All right.
Okay, we had a rant episode.
You know what? It's okay to have one every once in a while. It's like good to get it out of your system. So, all right.
Yeah, but
beautiful.
I'll just bring it up later on anyway.
Okay, beautiful, tall, handsome listeners. Thank you once again for listening to our rambling screed about Moe and the commodification of anime girls. I hope you found it riveting. I hope it left you with a deeper understanding of yourself, of the culture, of where we're all at right now.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah. This is a deep podcast, by the way. I just want, I don't think that comes through enough in the episodes. Like, we're serious people. We're serious people who talk about serious stuff.
Yeah,
I just want people to kind of like give us the gravitas that our conversations demand.
Look, I recorded an entire fucking podcast. I get to rant about stupid shit. That's what I'm doing. That's why I do this. It's the only reason.
All right, go hit the like buttons, download the episodes, do the stuff. We will talk to you next week.
All right.
Bye.
There are some people who call some motorcycles choppers. Yes, that is a thing that has happened in the history of the world. It's a thing that has happened.